Chris Godinez, licensed professional counselor, also the host of We Need to Talk on every Sunday at noon, and then I post these videos up to social media. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. The views and opinions stated herein are mine and mine alone. They do not represent the ACA, the APA, or any other therapist for that matter. Boom, shakalaka, done. I'd like to thank my sponsor, BetterHelp. BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com/Chris Godinez. They're an online therapy company. They've got 30,000 therapists working for them. I've gotten great feedback from people using them. So thank you, betterhelp.com/Chris Godinez. Okay, so today's question is, how do you know when you have a bad therapist? Well, I think you will know because you'll not feel like you're moving forward. And sometimes you'll feel like not good about yourself. I mean, that's the comments I've been hearing from a lot of people is when they've gone to a bad therapist. The therapist invalidates them, makes them feel bad about themselves, or doesn't know what they're talking about kind of thing. So like the client almost has to educate the therapist on whatever the issue is. So there are bad therapists out there. Absolutely. 110%. Some therapists are narcissists. I'm not kidding you. I've run into my fair share of them, and they think that they know better than the client. And here's what a good therapist does. A good therapist finds out what the client wants to work on. That's always when I interview people, because they need to be interviewing me as much as I interview them. When I talk to them, when they want to come on board, I'm always like, okay, well, what's the issue? What are we going to be working on so I can help you and make sure I am the right therapist for you? Because sometimes people can come to me with problems that I do not know how to help. So for example, if somebody came to me and they were severely mentally ill, okay, and they had, like schizophrenia or something like that, I could mitigate some of the anxiety that might go with that, but they would need to be with a psychiatrist to help them with their meds and help them with other issues. So know your limitations. That's the first thing, is a good therapist knows their limitations. So a bad therapist doesn't. A bad therapist is like, they think they know it all, or they think they know you better than you know you, which is not true. You know you and your needs better than anybody else. A therapist is just there to help you access that. Like seriously, like when I'm doing inner child work with my clients, I'm always like, okay, what does your inner child need? What do you need? And then we figure it out that way. It's like a discovery process. Whereas a bad therapist will come in and be like, I know everything and I'm going to tell you what to do and blah, 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 blah. I'm always like, what do you think about working on, say, for example, self-esteem? Because what I'm hearing is, and then I'll, reflect back to them what I hear. So a bad therapist does not make you feel good. Now, that does not mean that therapy is always going to be yippee skippy. This is so much fun. Sometimes therapy is really, it's a lot of emotions. It's a lot of emotions. It's a lot of dredging through the past and dredging up what we've buried and maybe exposing to the light things that we did not want to see. So it's not always fun, but a good therapist will show you how to navigate those tough times in therapy and always leave you on a good note. That's always hugely important. You don't ever want to leave a client literally hanging, like holding the bag, just like, oh, I've got all this emotional stuff, and I don't know what to do. You always make sure they're okay. And you always show them the light. You always show them the light at the end of the tunnel is not always a freight train. So bad therapists, and I've seen them do this, will not help the client, really, not, because I always ask people at the end of the sessions, I'm like, was this helpful? Did you get what you needed? Kind of thing. Bad therapists don't do that. Bad therapists also sometimes, and I've seen them do this too, and especially in rehab centers, the not so ethical ones, they'll just run out their insurance and not really help the person. And I've seen therapists do that as well, based on what clients have told me about previous therapists. So if you feel like you're not getting anywhere, then that's a bad therapist. You need to be getting somewhere. Even on the first session, usually the first session, the way it goes is you do a biopsychosocial. So you're asking questions. The therapist is asking questions. The therapist is like, Okay, tell me about your family of origin. Tell me about the issue you're having now. How's your self-esteem? What are your sleep habits like? What is you're asking all these questions to try to fill in this picture of what's going on. And you give them tools in that first session that they can start using, and you show them how to use those tools so that after that first session, okay, here's your toolbox, toolbox being Glenn Schiraldi's The Self-Esteem Workbook, Inner Child Workbook by Catherine Taylor, or Regaining the Inner Child by Lucia Cappuccioni, CPTSD from Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker, Facing Codependency by Pia Melody, who just passed away recently. I'm so sorry. She was awesome. So, that's your toolbox. That's your toolbox. And then you show them how to start working the tools. So one of the tools is mirror work. Hi, good to see you. Have a great day. You know what? I give you permission to like yourself, and then walk out. Okay, here's your screwdriver. Practice with the screwdriver, So they've got something to practice with, and they've got a toolbox that they can go back to and maybe learn about some more tools. So you give them something to start working on that very first session. A lot of times the first session is taken up completely with them just blah, which is normal because you're probably the first person that they've been able to talk to in God knows how long. But even though they've taken up most of the session with just, telling you everything that's going on, give them a tool. Give them a tool. Give them a toolbox. Recommend books. Recommend, mirror work. Recommend self-esteem exercise or positive affirmation, something, so that they have something to take away with them to work on during that week until you see them again. So a good therapist is kind and compassionate and listens and basically remembers. I mean, it's so funny. My clients will come back in and they'll be like, well, do you remember when I told you blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, yeah, And of course I take notes, but, most of the time I remember my clients, what they've told me. So, and genuine liking your client, I think, is important. I genuinely love my clients. I do. They're all amazing. And when one doesn't do well or one dies of natural causes, it's devastating because you form a relationship with them and you love them. And I think a bad therapist treats clients like a commodity as opposed to a person. So you can just tell there are some therapists out there that are just in it for money. They don't care. They don't really give a darn. They don't really, they're not invested in any way, shape, or form. And if you're feeling like your therapist is not listening or not giving you tools, then you need to leave. You need to fire them. So how do you fire a bad therapist? Well, you assess it. You go home and you go, okay, I've been seeing this therapist for X number of times. They haven't given me any things, any homework, any books to read, any tools to work on, no mirror work, no positive affirmations. I just feel like I'm coming in and just, regurgitating, and I'm not moving forward. So what you want to do first and foremost, is you give the therapist a chance to correct course, okay? Because therapists will not know that you're not happy unless you speak up. Now, is that a huge issue with a lot of us? Yeah, we have a hard time speaking up. But in this case, you're paying to have somebody help you. And if they're not helping you, you've got to speak up. So you would go to your therapist and you would say, okay, I've been seeing you for X amount of time. I don't feel I'm moving forward. I feel like I'm just sitting here regurgitating and you're just sitting there going, how do you feel about that? I just, I want to do something to move me forward. What can we do to move me forward? And if at this point, if they flip the script and make it about you, you're dealing with a narcissistic therapist. A good therapist would be like, oh my gosh, okay, well, here's what we can do, and start working on stuff. If however you're like, okay, no, this therapist and I do not, no, this is not a good relationship. Because remember, the rapport is really important. And if you're not feeling it with your therapist, then get a new therapist. Absolutely. So if they flip the script on you, if they don't give you homework, if they don't help you work on stuff, if they don't hand you tools, then you're going to fire them. And you can do it over the phone. You don't have to do it in person. So I would recommend bringing your issues to your therapist first so that the therapist has a chance to course correct. If they don't course correct, okay, we're done. Thanks for playing. Bye-bye. And you can just leave a message. You know what? This therapeutic relationship is not working out. I'm breaking up with you, and thank you. I'll be finding a new therapist. Boom, done. And a lot of people feel guilty about doing that. Oh my God, don't. This is part of that codependency, facing codependency with Pia Melody, that book. By Pia Melody. It's really important for us to stand up for ourselves. Really important. And of course, we view therapists as an authority figure. And so when we have to break up with them or have to let them go, we feel like, oh my God, it's confrontation. No, it's clarification. Let me clarify. You are not giving me the services that I need. Therefore, I am ending this relationship. Thank you. That's it. That's all it is. So, yeah, you have the right to break up with your therapist. You do. If the therapist is not giving you what you need, if they're not giving you tools, if they're not helping you move forward, if you feel like they're just running your insurance out, fire them. Fire them. Break up with them. Find a different therapist. And when you go to find a new therapist, interview them. Look at word of mouth. What are people saying? Are they helpful? Are they not helpful? Do people seem to like them or not? That's really important. And, go through. It's like, well, what's your training? What's your, tell me a little bit about you so I make sure that we're a good fit. And then you tell me about you so I make sure we're a good fit. Does that make sense? So that's what you want to do. And don't be afraid to fire your therapist. If the therapist is not giving you what you need, if you're like spinning your wheels and just regurgitating the same complaints over and over and over again, that therapist is not a good therapist. A good therapist will stop you if you're just complaining, right? A good therapist will be like, we've been talking about the same topic now for 3 times. So I know you want to complain about this. I know that it makes you feel good to do that, but this is not getting you anywhere. So what can we do differently? What will help you move forward? And then we start working on things to move forward. And sometimes the client will be like, well, I just want to complain. And I'll be like, that's not how I do therapy. I want you to move forward. I want you to grow. So here are the things to help you grow. And if clients do not do the homework, a good therapist will fire them because it's a waste of time. Seriously, it's like I have people that actually want help. So if I have somebody in my office that all they want to do is play the victim and complain and not do any of the work, it's kind of like you're wasting your money and my time because I have clients out there that actually want the help. So, it goes both ways. So, but yeah, no, if a therapist is bad, they'll make you feel like doo-doo all the time. I've seen that too. They'll invalidate you. Totally invalidate. You'll bring up a topic and they'll be like, oh, well, you're just, no, that's not, well, that's the client's experience. Validate their experience. It's not that hard. Thank you very much. So you want somebody who validates you in a good way, not like, validating things that you're doing, that are hurting you or hurting somebody else. But, if you're saying, hey, I'm feeling this way about this, well, yes, you are. You are feeling that way about that. Absolutely, and then discuss, what I'm saying? So, but if the therapist is not doing their job, not handing you tools, not teaching you, not encouraging you, not helping you to grow, if you're feeling stuck, if it's not going anywhere, if you feel like they're just running out your insurance, fire them. Absolutely. All right, my loves. So next week on We Need to Talk, I keep changing my mind about what I'm going to be doing. Hello. As far as topics are concerned. So I think, what did I do with my book? Oh my God. Oh, there it is. I need to clean my desk again. Okay. So I was going to do learned helplessness, but I think I'm going to change it to privacy because I've seen a lot of exes try to pull the whole, I'm going to subpoena your therapist and get all of your notes and show them how crazy you are. So I want to talk about HIPAA laws. I want to talk about what they can and cannot do. And I also want to talk about what happens if you go into a hospital and what happens to your personal stuff and all of that sort of stuff, because HIPAA covers even after a person dies. So I think we want to talk about privacy laws. I think that's a really important thing, and especially if you're divorced or whatever. So let's talk about HIPAA this Sunday. So that's it. All right, guys, I will talk to you later. Bye.